Hey everybody, and welcome to FYB's live U.S. Open webcast. Will Hamilton alongside Adam Szyminski.
Hello.
Before we get started, I want to thank Championship Tennis Stores for sponsoring this webcast. There's a link to their website right below the video player. So if you're going to get some tickets, please do it through them. I was at a Championship Tennis Stores event last night in New York City with Ian Westerman of EssentialTennis.com. A lot of fun. Got to meet some FYB viewers. Ben showed up to say hello. That was very nice of him. It was great to meet him. And what was I going to say? I spent all. When did I get back this morning? I'm running on fumes at the moment. Basically got back at took a train back at 5 in the morning, so I'm a little tired.
Nice.
But it was a nice trip. What else we got going on? We have a couple days left of our promotion for FYB Premium. And Adam, tell us a little bit about what we're doing tomorrow at noon.
We are during the first men's semifinals. So the semifinals of the men's come on at noon. They last until 6. During the first semifinal, which I don't know, do we know who plays first? I don't know if we do or not.
I'll check the schedule right now.
The first semifinal, Will and I are going to be commentating on that semifinal match.
So it's Federer Djokovic.
Right, so that'll be Federer Djokovic. So Will and I will
psych,
be...
psych. It's
No?
Rafael Nadal usually.
Yeah. Okay, so it's going to be Nadal Yuzny. Will and I will be commentating over top of that match, but we're going to be doing it in a unique way. It's not going to be normal commentary. You guys know we're running the promotion on FYB Premium, and we did that strategy course with the 5 strategic concepts you need to know and how to apply them to your own game. So during that semifinal, we are going to be commentating about the strategy that they're using. There's not going to be a lot of fluff commentary in there. It's going to be very to the point. We're going to be analyzing how they're constructing points, what they're doing, how they're getting on offense, where they've gone wrong, why they're on defense,
what adjustments they might be making over the course of the match. And the whole thing's going to be instructional.
Right.
So whether or not you're interested in Premium, you should check it out if you want to kind of figure out how you can apply what the pros are doing to your game.
Yep.
It'll be pretty cool. So with that in mind, let's talk about today's matches first. We had a big upset, earmuffs if you don't want to hear. Wozniacki got beaten by Zvonareva in straight sets. It was actually just kind of a bizarre, weird match on Wozniacki's part. If you clip over to my computer screen, we've got it over here.
Yeah,
Here's
we don't
chat.
have it. I believe you are not running the software.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Wait.
All right, there we go.
Okay, we are going back to the computer.
Yay! So here's the chat, and here we are over here. Maximize your screen if you want to see these things. But yeah, it was 4-3, and the crazy thing is Wozniacki made 31 unforced errors, and I believe most of them were on the forehand side. And it's just surprising because she made 18 errors in the wind in the previous round, and basically no errors, 10 errors against Sharapova. So to have a really inconsistent performance like this, you got to imagine she's not too happy about that. Now, with that said, Zvonareva played very solid, nothing flashy, not going to make any highlight reels, but she moved the ball around well and hit with sufficient pace.
She was hitting big, yeah.
But it was just a little surprising because Wozniacki and Zvonareva basically have the same style, and you would assume that Wozniacki's a little bit better at it. So for Zvonareva to come through, basically playing solid, unspectacular tennis, is, I wouldn't have predicted that. Obviously, I predicted Wozniacki to win the tournament. She just let me down. As fellow Danes, I'm part Danish, so I have to have
all of your predictions down the drain. Who did you have?
I got Federer on the inside.
You had Wozniacki playing Clijsters in the final.
I didn't pick a final matchup.
Okay, all right. So
but
you just said it was going to be Wozniacki.
Clijsters would have been a good guess.
Okay.
That's probably what I would have gone with before the tournament. Would be Wozniacki Clijsters. Yeah, and SW19, obviously Zvonareva reached the final at Wimbledon too. So interesting. This match is right now we've got Venus Williams versus Kim Clijsters. First set was 6-4 to Williams. Second set, Clijsters up 3-0. Only one break. So we'll see what develops with this, but you might have Zvonareva versus the other Williams sister. Played Serena at Wimbledon, got smoked. And then obviously Venus has a similar style of play, big serve, big ground strokes. So that'd be a rematch of sorts, I guess. with that in mind, why don't we'll keep this this match in our sort of would it be rear view mirror, or what would be like
what,
one eye
on the radar?
We keep one eye on the match. That's what I was looking for. And let's talk about the men's quarters yesterday. We had Wawrinka versus Yuzny. Now, I'm just going to touch on this briefly because I actually did not see this match because I was on a train up to New York during the match. So Yuzny won 6-3 in the fifth. From what I saw, what I heard, it sounded like Yuzny was not playing particularly well. Or at least, I mean, obviously played well enough to win, but 57 unforced versus 34 winners is not going to get it done against Rafael Nadal, who's not going to give you too much. And, you know, he obviously beat Verdasco in straight. 16 unforced errors. 18 winners was a little surprising. It's not as high as you would expect, but Verdasco was, I did see some of this match. Verdasco was donating some points, and obviously didn't play as big as he needed to. For Verdasco to win that match, he'd have to play at an extremely high level. That's a tough ask after his 5-setter against Ferrer, maybe a little bit tired. And just that high-risk style, you know, there's only a couple days a year when you show up and you're ripping balls down the line, changing direction well, keeping your opponent on the move. So so that wasn't all that surprising. I guess Orange Eater says in the chat, Wawrinka Yuzny was another really ugly wind match. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it sounded like. So that's a little unsurprising. So we got Nadal versus Yuzny. I
think we know where that's going.
Yep, straight sets, you would think, to Rafa. And then you've got Federer Djokovic, which could be pretty interesting. I'm actually inclined to go straight sets for Federer.
Both Federer and Nadal are playing out of their mind right now.
Djokovic is playing well, but I just don't...
Yeah, but Djokovic is just not Federer.
Well, you're right.
He's not Federer at the top of his game, and Federer is at the top of his game right now. I could foresee 4 sets, but I think it's going to be 3.
It could be 4. What Djokovic is going to have to do, if we just sort of run through this real quick, we already know he has to serve well. I mean, at the Pro Tour, you always have to serve well. You have to return well, and Djokovic has got a great return, which he's going to need if Federer is serving as well as he did against Soderling, which was an impressive display. But if we have Djokovic up here, one thing I think he'll need to do is change direction frequently. I don't think he wants to get into protracted ground stroke exchanges with Federer, so he wants to keep them protracted cross-court exchanges, so he's going to want to keep Fed moving. And one of Djokovic's one of the strongest parts of his game is, we've got a backhand-to-backhand rally here, is Djokovic's down the line backhand. He's really good at changing the direction of the ball. It might be a Serbian thing because Jankovic can do this real well also. So I would expect Djokovic to try and go line a lot off the backhand when he gets a look, and keep Federer on the move and on the defensive. It's going to be a tall ask. I mean, you know, Djokovic is not one of those guys. He can certainly hit big, but he's not someone like Soderling who's just going to take huge cuts, and if his balls are going in, then he's a tough guy to play. So I think if Federer is at a high level, he's going to clearly be in the driver's seat. But we'll see. I mean, Djokovic has been serving pretty well. He's obviously been moving the ball around the court well. I don't think we can read too much into the Monfils match because Monfils embarrassed himself.
I think that Djokovic, someone made a comment in the chat that Djokovic is the best returner still left in the tournament.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's absolutely true.
And I think that judging by how well Roger served in his last match, that Djokovic is going to have to bring a return game, and if he doesn't, that if Roger continues serving at that level, it'll be over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that Joker probably can't handle or can't hang as long in some of those rallies as Soderling can, and probably can't.
Well, in what sense?
Well, he probably. You were saying that he needs to move Federer. I don't know if he can move Federer as well as Soderling can. Soderling puts more timing pressure on you by hitting bigger.
Well, he's not. Yeah, I'd have to disagree. He's not moving you though. He's just hitting you off the court. Djokovic moves the ball around the court much better than Soderling does, but he doesn't have the pace that Soderling does on the forehand side. So I think Djokovic is going to have to get Federer on the move, so that if you're rec player pro, if you're running and you're not set up, the quality of your shot is going to be diminished a little bit. Not as much on the Pro Tour. You have a guy like Rafa who can basically go on the dead sprint and hit ridiculous shots.
Right.
Same with Federer on the forehand side. But if we go back to that, that brief exchange here, so you get the cross-court backhand and backhand rally. If Federer's set up here, he's going to be fine in these rallies. So if Djokovic goes line, gets Federer on the run here, Federer hits the ball back, and let's say it's, even if it's over here and it's a relatively good neutralizing shot, certainly if it's in the middle of the court, if Djokovic sends it line now, this is a situation where Federer's hitting a running backhand, and that's when you might get a short ball. The running one-handed backhand, the ball will be inside a little bit. Djokovic can really step in and take control. Hard to really hit a forcing quality shot with the one-handed backhand when you're on the run. So that would be a strategy Djokovic could use. Hit to the strength, Fed's forehand to open up the backhand and get Federer moving, hitting that backhand. That's where he might get some short balls.
So do you think Djokovic will be taking chances basically by hitting cross court to Fed's forehand in order to hope that will open up Fed's backhand?
Yeah, basically. He needs to have Federer moving on the backhand to really get those short balls that he can exploit.
Fed's backhand was pretty dialed in last time.
It was.
Too.
It was good.
So
it was good, but I think the dynamics were slightly different, where Federer was in position and he just had to handle the pace. Because Soderling was just kind of going inside out and trying to hammer away, and Federer handled it. I mean, we watched the match together. He hit some ridiculous backhands, didn't have any problem handling the pace. But if he's moving, then it's just harder to get set up, and just one hand. It's you can't use two hands and kind of get around the ball as much as you could on the or with the two-hander. Looking at Djokovic's serve stats, he was 74% right here against Monfils, but the speed was down. It was only 108 first serve average, so it's probably about 10 miles an hour slower, you would assume, than they normally hit. That was because of the wind, of course. And then looking at Fed, he was much faster. I mean, he was 119. We talked about that the other day. And the conditions were probably worse when Fed was playing. So, Fed, again, his serve has been dialed in. So I think Djokovic is going to have to return exceptionally well if Federer keeps up the same percentage. And also looking at Fed's winners, 36 winners, 33 unforced errors. So he was +3 in awful conditions. Djokovic was -12. He hit 38 winners, 50 unforced errors.
Wow.
So that ratio is not going to be acceptable against Federer. Now, worth pointing out that Monfils gets a lot of balls back and makes you hit a lot of balls. So that can certainly cause you to litter up the stat sheet when your opponent is just retrieving everything and you have to go for something.
I'm curious to see what the weather will be like. The winds, I think, are still out there right now, but I think it's died down a little bit.
It didn't look as bad. Yeah, it looked. They're showing Bradley Cooper hangover on TV. It looks a little windy, but it doesn't look atrocious. And Sanus X is asking, assuming Djokovic gets through Fed and Nadal beats Uzny, would Djokovic have a chance against Rafa? And my inclination is to say probably not. The guy who's going to beat who Rafa struggles with on a hard court is a guy with a lot of firepower, and a Federer. Or
a shot maker.
A shot maker, yeah, exactly. And that's not to say that Djokovic isn't a shot maker, but he's not a guy who's going to, like we said, again, blow you off the court. He's not
Del Potro.
Yeah, or he's not as aggressive as a Federer. Federer's not going to blow you off the court, but he's one of the most aggressive players on tour. So he's going to take your time away, and he's going to move the ball around the court, and he's a master at constructing points. Ace High England says Djokovic is a little bit like Murray. The one thing that both these guys do well, and if we assume we have Rafa, Djokovic, which to be honest I'm hoping we don't have. I mean, everybody I think wants Fed Rafa, right? If anybody in the chat doesn't want that, Eric Papamarcos, who's an admin, is going to automatically ban you. So we're going to put Djokovic down here and put Rafa up here. Actually, whatever, this works. Rafa up here. So if you had this is the forehand for Rafa now. So if you have these cross-court exchanges, the one thing that Djokovic can do pretty well, and the match that everybody might remember, 09, the semis at Madrid, where it was a 3-set match. Those guys were battling. But what Djokovic can do well and Murray can do well is really step up with the two-handed backhand. They can take it high and they can do something with it. He can get a lot of these balls deep, or he can change direction on it. But that's what Djokovic is going to have to do. He can't just go cross court with Rafa, because ultimately, Rafa's forehand is going to break Djokovic's backhand down. But Djokovic can step in and try and pull Rafa off the court, open up the court over here on the backhand side, or he can go line and try and be aggressive with it as well. So it's kind of similar. The approach is going to be the same for Djokovic if he's playing Federer and Rafa, in the sense that he wants to move the ball around. Dynamics are going to be a little bit different because you have the lefty righty situation with Djokovic. But he has the ability to step in just like Murray did, and this is what Murray did against Nadal in Toronto. Stepped in. He would hammer a lot of balls back at Rafa's forehand. But Djokovic, he's obviously had success, or some success in terms of a game plan against Rafa in the past. So it's going to be a tall ask, just given the way Rafa's playing. I mean, Rafa's playing fantastic right now. I think the only guy that can beat him is Federer, and a lot of people I've talked to think Rafa's going to win the tournament, just because he's playing so well.
I'm disappointed that it's not going to be a Jusny-Djokovic final.
If it's a Jusny-Djokovic, I'm mailing in the webcast. I'm going to get a poster of myself made and just put it here, and then pre-record some quotes. It's like, oh, that was a nice shot. All right, we're going to commercial break. Thanks for tuning in. That's what's in store for you guys if we get Jusny.
Somehow I think that's not going to happen. There's a tremendous amount on the line in terms of tennis history. I think Brad Gilbert was saying that this may be basically the biggest match in like 40 years if it goes to a Fed-Rafa final at the U.S. Open. And they had some interesting statistics to back that up. There was,
I did not see that. That's interesting.
Well, you have Rafa could get the career Grand Slam, and the only person who stands in his way is a 29-year-old guy, who would have had 5 or 6 more majors if not for Rafa. So you've got one guy who should have 21, 22 majors but doesn't, and then you got the other guy who wants the career Grand Slam. Fed is 29 now. He turned 29, I think, either right before the U.S. Open or right before. Rafa 24. Obviously, Fed. There's a tremendous amount on the line for Fed, because if Fed loses, then Rafa will have beaten him in something like 6 out of their last 8 encounters during majors.
Well, right now, absent clay courts, they're 2-2 in major finals.
In the finals, but not necessarily in finals. There was some statistic in there, and then I'll have to.
Well, the last time they didn't play in a final at a major was 2005 at the French Open.
Yeah.
I think that's the only time they haven't played a final at a major.
Okay. So maybe it was 3 out of 4 or something like that, and it'd be 4 out of 5.
Right. I'm trying to think. The last time they played was Madrid this year, and then before that I'm blanking. But I think that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. You're right. You have a guy who, on the precipice of the career Grand Slam. Right. You have Federer, who is arguably the greatest player ever, yet the main knock on him is he can't beat his biggest rival.
Right.
And Federer can insulate himself if he wins the final. You say, look, I have a winning record against this guy on non-clay court surfaces.
Right.
And the clay, yes, Rafa's a better clay court player than me, but it's unfair in a way to me. Like, I'm always playing Rafa because I beat everybody else. So I end up in the final. I just happen to play this dude over and over. So he's kind of racked up and littered the stat sheet.
Right.
Because we're playing on his best surface.
Right.
And then, we haven't played as much on hard court or grass because Rafa loses before he gets to the final. Like the U.S. Open, he lost in 08. Rafa did 08 semis, 09 semis.
Right.
Federer's in the final. So that's a valid. Rafa lost this year in the quarters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a clear, like a very salient argument. But if Rafa beats him now,
Right.
then that kind of muddies the waters a little bit and would certainly make it interesting. So yeah, I'm fingers crossed. That would be an unreal.
I think it would be epic. That would probably go 5 sets, considering the way these guys are playing. Neither one of them is going to back down. Like, you have to assume it goes 5 sets. But I think maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here. There's still 2 more matches to play. Fed does have to get through Djokovic. That's I think the biggest. Rafa is basically, I think at this point, guaranteed to be in the final.
Yeah.
Fed not guaranteed, but I think that Fed can easily win that if he shows up to play.
So, a couple things in the chat. Orange Heater says, I think Nadal is being modest when he says people who say I'm better than Roger don't know anything about tennis.
I don't know.
I think Rafa actually believes that, to be honest. And Rafa has 8 majors, Federer has 16. It's just by the numbers, it's pretty
right.
It's pretty clear. That might be different in a couple of years, but I think that's a fair statement right now.
Yeah, and I think Rafa acknowledges that his success was limited more to slower surfaces. He's had some success lately with faster surfaces, since like say 2008.
2008. He's really. I mean, we talked about this yesterday. Rafa is going to go down as one of the all-time greats. He already is, but one of the reasons is because he's always trying to improve, and the most his serve's way better.
Right.
Just changed his grip, and now he can hit it 10 miles an hour faster.
Right.
Ace High England asks, Will, I got a question. Has Nadal made Federer a better player, or has Federer lost confidence because he keeps getting beat? He certainly, in my view, made him a better player. And you can see that, I think, recently with it's not just Nadal, but Federer. He didn't do as well as he'd like at the French or at Wimbledon, so he brings on Anna Cohn to kind of be a different look. So Fed's always trying to improve. I think that's clear by being willing to work with Anna Cohn. Federer's adjustments against, if you look at how Federer played Rafa in 2005 or 6, Federer used his slice backhand all the time, tried to slice it low to Rafa's forehand so that Rafa couldn't be as aggressive with it. And that was completely ineffective.
Ineffective, yeah.
I sent an email today saying sneak peek, and I spelled it P-E-A-K. I'm dyslexic, so I reverse, it could be P-E-E-K. My dyslexia, I'm going to blame it on misspelling.
The thing that I would say about the Federer-Rafa rivalry, at least from Federer's perspective, is, it has to be incredibly, incredibly challenging for Federer to face Rafa. Purely from just the simple perspective of not only do you not face left-handed players all that often, so your thought process essentially has to be reversed when you're trying to pick apart their weaknesses, or go after shots. Yeah. That doesn't come necessarily easily. They are pros. You'd expect them to be able to do it on some level. But not only that, but you are facing a lefty who is the second best player, arguably, or currently on tour.
Right now,
currently on tour, or is the best, and has a forehand and has the action on his ball is just unlike anything else that's on tour. And so, not only does Rafa have huge weapons, especially his forehand, his backhand's a monster as well, especially on the run. And now has a huge serve as well.
Yeah, I mean, what I was saying earlier is early in the career, Fed would slice those balls a lot, but because, like you said, Rafa has so much action, he could take a massive cut at the ball, even though it's a couple feet below the net, get it up and down, no problem. And, the slice is going to allow Rafa to step in, so now he can pull Fed even further off the, let me diagram that.
And don't forget that the camera's over there on the whiteboard now, but don't forget that, they met 4 times at the French Open. And, I mean, that monster action on Rafa's forehand just pulls the ball right up into Fed's one-handed backhand. Yeah. It's just tremendously difficult to do. It's hard enough to return a one-handed backhand high, even harder when it's Rafa's ball.
Yeah, I mean, the slice is going to, we'll say the blue line here is topspin, where Rafa might be hitting it back here. But the slice lands shorter, so Rafa can step in, and then with all that topspin, he just pulls Fed way off the court that way, or he just rips it down the line. That's what he was doing maybe 3-4 years ago And Federer basically bailed on the slice against Rafa. He doesn't really hit it unless he's trying to move the ball around the court or kind of has to. He's basically topspin now. If you look at the Madrid match, in the first set he stood pretty far back. Second set he stood up, and actually I thought he outplayed Rafa in that set and then just kind of let it go in the breaker. But he stood up and was just trying to take the ball early on the rise, take Rafa's time away and keep Rafa back with the topspin, don't let him step in, and change direction when he could, when it wasn't, too much of a risk. So those are the adjustments, to go back to what Ace was saying, that Federer has made to try to cope with what Rafa is doing to him. So yes, long story short, Federer is a better player because of Rafael Nadal. Nadal is a better player because of Federer, and everybody else is a better player because of both these guys. So thank you, Ace. I appreciate the. Glad you liked the answer. So let's see. You guys have any questions? We're coming up on 5:30. I'm playing tennis at 6, so I got to get out of here. I got to work. I'm lefty too. I'm gonna be working on my Rafa forehand. A lot of reverses over the head. But what other questions do we have from anybody before we wrap this up? Are there any more questions?
Well, Status X had an interesting question.
Oh, perfect. SW19, thank you for that. I'm glad I didn't miss that. Dennis Kudla is now in the semifinals of the Junior U.S. Open. And he is, of course, coached by Frank Salazar, who's a good friend of ours personally, and he's helped us with the website. So fingers crossed, Dennis can pull out the U.S. Open Junior title. I think he had a pretty easy win today. So we'll see. The semis are going to be tomorrow. Obviously, the boys' finals on Saturday. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what's going on. Yes, tennis, MCMC, I do play with contacts. Playing with glasses is tough because halfway through the point, your glasses are like this or something.
Right.
So what style of play does Dennis have? He's
a baseliner.
He's a baseliner, but he's got a good forehand when he goes after it. And his backhand, he changes direction really well on it. So he can get in a cross-court rally and then go line with it, and you don't really expect it. So he's a tricky player, and he's very, 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 very smart. Constructs points well. So what would I describe my play style? Adam, what would you describe my play style as?
I think you're a baseliner as well. I mean, you tend, obviously you're a lefty, so you tend to try to pull your opponents off the court on their backhand wing and then end points cross court.
Yeah, I'd say aggressive baseliner basically. Sometimes more aggressive than I should be, but I'll basically cheat over into my backhand corner and I go inside out a lot, even though that.
Generally when I beat you, it's because I overpower you.
That's true. That's very, very true.
Right. So
maybe one of these days I'll diagram my playing style. I do hit a lot of reverse forehands. No, Robert, Adam cannot beat me. He can beat me in Wii tennis. We've never played, but
I would destroy you.
Would
in
you?
Wii tennis.
Okay, we'll have a match at some point.
Yes.
All right. Well, with that in mind, guys, we are going to sign off tomorrow. The webcast tomorrow is not at 5. It is at noon.
Yep.
Eastern Daylight Time, and we're
semifinal.
We got Rafa Yuzny. We're going to be talking about. It'll be interesting because we have the lefty. Rafa is the lefty, so that'll kind of throw some stuff into the mix. It's kind of a wrench into maybe some of our commentary, but it'll be fun. So please join us because it'll be very instructionally oriented versus kind of just the basic commentary we just did. Status X, it is true, Rafa is a lefty, surprisingly enough. All right, well, with that in mind, we are going to sign off. The Clijsters-Enna match, Clijsters-Williams match looks like it's about to go 3, so we're going to watch that. I'm going to go play tennis in a second, but we will see you guys tomorrow at noon.
All right, bye, guys.